All right, I will say good evening. We are first. I thank you to Rabbi Chaim for giving shir last night. We're starting somewhere on Vav Amud Aleph. Right? No, somewhere, whatever. It's not important. You guys, I'll start reading. You guys just find it on your own. How's that? How's that? We're starting somewhere between Daf Nun Hey and Nun Tes. I'm going to read. You guess, and we'll go from there. Or Nun Vav Amud Aleph, 10 lines down from the top. Barhedja. So we'll say, so remember again, in yesterday's daf, we were introduced to this concept of kala chalomos holchim achar hapeh, which literally means that the interpretation of dreams really follows, or I should say, the actualization of dreams depends on how they are interpreted, which of course, first of all, again, it just bears just a moment of reflection in terms of what exactly that means, right? So a person has a dream, and the way they get it, the way it's interpreted determines how it actually manifests. Look at you. You've listened to some podcasts on that long drive. That's how it manifests. So first of all, what does that mean? What does that mean? So remember, of course, we spoke about this actually a couple of nights ago, I think, where this idea that sometimes when a person falls into a certain mindset, so life becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And a lot of times, when people think about life a certain way, that's how it goes. People think about themselves a certain way, that's how they self-actualize. So perhaps there's almost this idea that if you have this dream and you get it interpreted a certain way, that interpretation seeps into your consciousness, your subconsciousness, to the point that literally, again, it has the ability to manifest itself. Not because the interpretation has some type of heebie-jeebie power. It doesn't even, you can go with that approach, but even if you don't go with that approach, it's so fascinating how we are influenced by what people say to us and by what people say about us. Just to give you the simplest example. You have a bad interaction with someone in the morning. Generally, what happens after that? Right? Ruins your day, right? And it's the most incredible thing in the world, right? So first of all, everybody in customer service businesses, right? knows this dynamic, right? Somebody just goes off and for absolutely and in your mind that was crazy, that was ridiculous, that actually, most times that people go off on us, it actually has nothing to do with me and everything to do with whatever. But it's amazing how it colors everything in life. Now, it's terrible. Life is and even though objectively, if somebody were to ask you, can you go ahead and kind of describe your life, you would describe all of the great things. Yet because of this interaction, I feel so upset, I feel so angry, I feel so disappointed, so disillusioned because of one interaction. That's the power. That's the power that external stimuli have upon us. They shape our thinking, they shape our approach, they shape our outlook. So I think perhaps what Chazal are also saying is that when you get that interpretation of the dream, if you allow that to seep into your consciousness, so consciously, subconsciously, that begins to shape your behaviors and therefore begins to shape the outcome, which when you look at life like this, it helps to frame so many other things, right? This is why the concept of surrounding yourself with good people, positive people, right? A lot of times we think to ourselves, whoever my friends are, they are my chavers. I'm going to do my thing, even though they're going to do something different. The peer influence is profound, not just on behaviors, but on emotion and on thoughts, right? When Chazal said, Oy l'Rasha, oy l'shcheno, woe to the Rasha, woe to his neighbor. What's about being a neighbor of Rasha? I know he's a Rasha, I'm not going to do what he does. There's a seepage. There's an influence. I'm sorry, I suppose. Wow. It's incredible. I think he's going for that GED. This is incredible. It's just fascinating when you begin to look at it like this. So many other things, and that's why we know this, right? In life, I think when we're young, we think as long as I'm doing the right thing, my surroundings don't matter as much, right? As we get older, we recognize that, of course, doing the right thing is incredibly important. But just as important as doing the right thing is putting yourself in the right atmosphere, surrounding yourself with the right influences. Because again, all of those things seep in, osmosisize. No, okay. They seep in and it shapes me. So with that, let's go. Says the Gemara. Barhedja, this is great. So Barhedja mafshech chal mehava. Bar Hedja was a dream interpreter. That was his that was his skill. Listen to this. Man diavle agra mafshel mal yusa. If you paid him for dream interpretation, you were guaranteed to get a good interpretation. People actually look for this out of rabbis also. Right? In other words, right? I want a heter. I want a heter. How much is it going to be mutter, right? So bar hedja. So again, you paid him money, had a good interpretation. Uman de lo yav le'ira. But if you did not pay him, mafsher le'ligrisa, he would give you a bad interpretation. Now, interestingly enough, what's the pshat with this? So okay, you could just say that bar hedja was just a business guy. So it's all about. I'm sorry. Or let me show you a different light, like to be melamid schos, to kind of give him benefit of the doubt. This was Bar Hedja's skill set. This is what he used to make his parnasa. You always have to be careful when you ask people for favors that have to do with the things they do professionally, because to a certain degree, it's a little bit unfair. Right? If I have a skill set that I use to earn my parnasa, so maybe we have relationships, you're asking me for something, but you're asking me for my skills. Of course, again, with good friends, we could ask favors. That's not what I'm referring to. But we see this all the time, right? People, you're an accountant, you're a lawyer, can you just help me out with this little thing. And the truth is, you have to be careful with it, because if you're asking someone for free help with a skill set that they use to generate their parnasa, it might not be totally fair, it might not be totally nice, and it might put a person in an uncomfortable position. So again, not condoning what Bar Hedja did, but just a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, this was his parnasa, this is what he did. So if you came and you paid him, he promised you are going to get your money's worth. But if you tried to exploit it and you just wanted a favor, right, and you just wanted a free dream interpretation, he would give it. Again, I don't think the Gemara is calling this proper behavior, but just sometimes it's interesting to see why people act the way that they act. So what happens? Rabbi says, it's incredible. Abai and Rava chazu chalma. So watch this. Abai and Rava both had dreams. Now, interestingly enough, we're going to see they actually had the same dream, which is quite interesting in of itself. The same dream. They came to Bar Hedja. Abai yoav lezuzeh, Rava lo yoav le. So listen to this. Abai paid Bar Hedja, and Rava did not. Okay, so Bar Hedja says, no, what's the dream? Amrulay. They said to him, Akrinan bechalmin sharcha tavuach leinecha. So both said, this is incredible. Abai and Rava had the same dream. What was the dream? They saw a pasuk. Now both say, just first of all, before we even go on, can you imagine being on the level that you dream about pasukim? Can you imagine that? Like it takes so much strength to make sure that you're not dreaming about inappropriate things, right? And alachas kama v'kama, good things and holy things, they're dreaming about pasukim. So they saw in their dream, they saw this pasuk, they saw it. So they saw that phrase, sharcha tavuach le'inecha. This is part of the tochacha, part of the set of curses, where the Torah says you'll see your ox slaughtered right in front of you. So listen to this. So remember again, now Rava didn't pay for the interpretation, and Abaye did. The Rava Amrle pasid iskach v'lo ahani lach lemeichal meutzva dalibach. So Bar Hedja said to Rava, here's what the dream means for you, Rava. The dream means for you is that your business is going to fail. Your business is going to fail, and you're going to be so distressed, or you're going to suffer so much from financial stress that you're not going to have an appetite. That was Rava. Abai Amar Mervach Iskach. Abai he said, your business is going to flourish. And you're going to be so happy and so preoccupied with your success that you're not even going to think about eating. So I will say, same exact pasuk. V'sharcha tavuach leinecha. Your ox will be slaughtered in front of your eyes. Rava, who didn't pay, your business is going to fail. You're going to be so upset, you're going to lose your appetite. Abaye, you will succeed ridiculously, and you will be so almost like satiated with success. V'sharcha tavuach leinecha, that even if they shecht an animal right in front of you, you're not even going to want to eat. You're going to be so satiated with success. I'll also point out that we're going to see a number of examples. Well, let's finish. Amrele, Akrinan, so they had a second dream. What did it say in the second dream? Banim ubanos tolid. Shabbos say these are all psukim from the Tochacha, all the same section of the Torah. So the pasuk says, "You will have sons and daughters, and they will not be yours because they'll be taken captive." That's the pasuk in Tochacha. So the Rava Amar Kvishusei. So Rava said, so Bar Hedja said to Rava, "Your children are going to be taken captive." La Abai Amar Le Banecho B'Nosecha Nefishin. Listen to this. To Abai he said, "What does it mean?" I remember again. I will say, "Do you see Abai and Rava? Abaye." Paid. So Abaye gets the good interpretation. Abaye bincha b'nosecha nefisha. You're going to have so many sons and daughters. And what's going to happen? Umin saban bansecha li alma. You're going to marry off your daughter to some guy, right? To some guy from the world. Umedamyon ba'apach kitaka azlan b'shivya. And it's going to be like your daughter is taken captive. Now, of course, over here it's much more of a positive metaphor. The idea over here is you're going to have so many sons and daughters. Your daughter's going to get married. The guy's out of town. And what's going to happen? They're going to move away. And it's going to be like, again, almost like and they're going to be like they're taken captive. In other words, but it's a bracha. Right? Why is it a bracha? Because your children will progress. Your children will move forward. Your children will move on. Another dream. Carry on.
Does the Gemara say anywhere that any of these came true? I know that we've been. Gemara says anywhere that any of this ends up coming.
I don't know at the end of this story. I will say there is one last one. There is one last one where Rava comes to Bar Hedja by himself, right. And that dream comes true. I don't know. I didn't even think to look. I was so wrapped up in the story. Yeah, but I don't know. It's an interesting point. Carry on. Another pasuk. Your children, your sons and your daughters will be given to another nation. So it says, remember again, all of these are psukim of tochacha, of rebuke and curse for Klal Yisrael. So listen to this. So Abaye was the paying patron. And he says, here's what it means. You're going to have many sons and daughters. At amart likrivach. So Abaye says, so Bar Hedja says to Abaye, you're going to want to marry off your kids to your relatives. Vihi, and she is a reference to who? Mrs. Abaye. Mrs. Abaye Amra Likriva is going to want to go ahead and marry off the kids to her family. And what's going to happen? You're going to argue about this. And what happens at the end? Va'ach balach, she's going to win. Via habis lahon likreva. And ultimately, again, you're going to have your kids married to your wife's family. And how do you feel about your wife's family? Dahavi ka'am acher. Your wife's family, they're like another nation, right? They're like another. Listen, there's a lot of wisdom in here, right? Your wife's family, mamish, like from another planet. That they're ka'amacher. But again, once again, for Abaye, it's interpreted in a positive way. L'Rava Amalei, according to Rava, he said, what does it mean? Divisu shchiva, your wife is going to die. Va'asu bana ubanse l'de isis sa'achrisi. And your sons and daughters will be raised by another woman. And we'll say the idea is that's the metaphor of your sons and daughters will be taken captive. That in other words, their mother will die and you're going to remarry, but they'll be raised by another woman. What does it mean when the Torah says your sons and your daughters will be given over to another nation? Zo eshes ha'av. This refers to the father's wife. That sometimes the mother of the children dies and the father remarries. So sometimes, again, in the new marriage, the children don't have the mazel to have a good relationship with their stepmother. And that could be a very difficult and overwhelming relationship. So sometimes the relationship between that stepmother and the stepchildren could be like the children being sold to another nation. Very overwhelming. Next, we'll say first of the widest lines. Akarim B'Chalman. They had another dream. Lech echo b'simcha lachmecha. So both say they saw this is actually very beautiful. They saw now it's positive psukim, right? So they saw this pasuk in Koheles. Go and eat your bread with joy. Now, what does this mean? La Abaye Amalei mervach iskech va'achalt v'shasis v'karyas psuka michedvach delibach. So Abaye, so remember again, Abaye was the paying customer. So Abaye said it means your business is going to flourish, you're going to eat and you're going to drink and you're going to recite this pasuk as a reflection of your personal joy. The Rava Amrale, according to Rava, who was unpaying, who did not pay, he said, Pasid iskach, you're going to lose your business. Tavchas v'lo achalt v'shasis, you're going to go ahead and slaughter, but you're not going to be able to eat and drink. V'karis lefachuche pachadata, you're going to say this pasuk in order to go ahead and try to remove some of your fears. Next, Akrinon, they saw in the dream. Again, I will say these are all dreams of Abaye and Rava. So in this dream, what do they say? Zera Rav Totzi Hasada. So back to the Tochacha. Your field will produce a lot of grain, or a lot of produce, but ultimately, again, you will collect or harvest very little because the locusts will overrun it. Abaye Amarle Meresha. So we'll say Abaye, this is interesting. So Bar Hedge said to Abaye, for you, the importance of this dream lies in the first phrase. Zera Rav Totzi Hasada. I will say, this also goes with the idea, we've seen this in the Gemara, and we'll see it again in just a little bit, that Ein Chalam Below Dvarim B'Telim. There's always an understanding that every dream, even if you go at the idea that dreams have prophetic importance, there's always some element of the dream that's nonsensical. So Barhedja said to Abaye, the paying customer, you need to focus on the first part of the phrase. Zera Rav Totzi Hasada. You're going to be ridiculously successful. L'Rava Amrle Misefe. For Rava, he said, you need to focus on the end of the pasuk, meaning that the locusts are going to consume all of your produce. Next, Akrinon. So they both had a dream, and in the pasuk, in the dream they saw you'll have olives in all of your boundaries, olive trees in all of your boundaries. Now again, remember this is Tochacha. So the pasuk says, but you will not get the oil because your enemies will pillage the trees. So the Abaye Amar Mereshe. So Bar Hedja said, Abaye, you focus on the beginning of the pasuk. Namely, you're going to have a lot of olive trees. Or the Rava Amar Misefe, and Rava, you focus on the end of the pasuk that you're not going to benefit from any of the oil. One more. Akrinon V'ro Kal Ame Ashimon. We'll say, no, we'll stop over. No, we'll do one more. So next. Akrinon V'ro Kal Ame Haaretz. So I'll say, so the pasuk says, so they both had another dream, and in the dream they saw the pasuk said, all the nations of the world will see that the name of Hashem has been cast upon you, and they will fear and revere you. So Abaye said, you're going to become a Rosh Yeshiva, and as a Rosh Yeshiva, everyone's going to fear you. The Rava Amarle B'daina de Malka Isbar. For Rava, he said, here's what's going to happen. Someone's going to break into the king's treasury, umisapesas biginavi, and they're going to accuse you, Rava, of being the thief, which is pretty dramatic. V'dayane kuli alma kal v'chomer minach, and the entire world is going to make a kal v'chomer from you. Meaning what? That if Rava could be suspected ultimately of robbery, then all the more so we could be suspected of wrongdoing as well. And sure enough, what happened? And Chaim, this addresses your point. Lamachar itbar bedaina de malka. The next day, the king's treasury was robbed. Va'asu tafsei l'Rava, and they arrested Rava. They arrested Rava on suspicion of theft from the king. All right, we'll say stop over for today. But say one thing I will leave you with, just to contemplate. Obviously, we'll see how this Gemara shakes out. But what is dramatically amazing is, leaving aside the interpretation of the dreams, is how beautifully Bar Hedja is able to pull out two dramatically opposite interpretations from the same pasuk. And what a metaphor for how to approach life. Life is all about taking negative circumstances and trying to find something positive. It's all about taking a pasuk from the Tochacha, from like the worst of the curses, and being able to somehow extract some glimmer of light, some glimmer of hope, some glimmer of promise. So as Bar Hedja was doing this in the interpretation of the dreams, even if you leave aside dream interpretation, what godless? The ability to look at a pasuk that represents the worst of the curses Klal Yisrael could ever experience and be able to pull something positive out, that's the avodah we all have. Shkoyach.